Hello and welcome to the Coaching Podcast, Coaching for Success in Sport and Business. Your host is Emma Doyle, the energy and high performance under pressure coach who is a world leader in unleashing human potential. Buckle up for this high octane session. Let 'em have it, coach.
Welcome to the Coaching Podcast, and would you believe it, we have a very special sponsor for Season 8 on the Coaching Podcast, and that is finding your perfect coach shouldn't feel like a guessing game. Meet Sam, the AI that matches you with a coach who truly gets you. Your goals, values, personality, all aligned. Discover your perfect match at trysam.ai.
And welcome to this episode. And if this voice sounds different to the one you just heard, that's because this is Tracey Ezard. I was lucky enough to be a guest on episode 184 of the Coaching Podcast. And today I am wresting control out of Emma Doyle's hands, flipping the script on her, because I think it's about time for this very, very special 200th episode to interview the woman herself. What an extraordinary milestone, Emma. And thanks for letting me do this, because I think there's so many people that listen to this podcast who are so intrigued by you. You lead us down such an amazing pathway with every guest that you interview. And so let's find out a little bit about you. Are you up for that?
Well, thank you so much, Tracey, for actually suggesting this after I interviewed you. So I really appreciate that. And I am super chuffed, humbled, grateful. 200 episodes. Who knew? So thank you.
Who knew? Who knew? And look, I've got a little pattern break for you straight away. And that is, if the Coaching Podcast, Mike, could speak, what do you think that Mike would say about what you've learnt over 200 episodes?
I'm pausing for effect because the Mike has had to endure many moments that have been pure gold dust, as well as many moments that have been things like idiosyncratic, those words, and this poor Mike has had to go through all those versions. Sometimes when I listen to some of the earlier episodes, I'm like, my language and the way that I get my point across. I think doing a podcast and hosting a podcast, it is one of the most challenging things that one can do. So this Mike has heard it all, from failures to those gold dust moments where people have given me one-liners for me to then, and the microphone to then interpret and simplify it and make it tangible for our listeners. So I think that's one thing that the microphone's really proud of, is that we always tend to give those actionable takeaways from every episode. And one of my favorite things to do through the microphone is to summarize the guest. I love that. At the end of the episode, I get so much out of it myself. So thank you.
Well, and you do that so well, because you can hear that when the guests go, well, you nailed that, after you do your summary. So it's a fantastic thing, and it's a fantastic thing for us as listeners that you are able to distill so well all that gold dust that's come out through that episode. Can you give us a bit of an overview about you? We know you've got the Coaching Podcast. We know you're an extraordinary developer of leaders as coaches, but can you tell us a little bit about your journey? What's been the road to where you are now?
Thanks for asking. And I guess I never get sick of going back and sharing my journey, because it is one where I feel like I grew up just an ordinary girl, and I'm living an extraordinary life because of that great sport of tennis. Tennis has been the vehicle in those early years, exposing me to, after my paper round, tennis coaching was my second ever job. And to experience that first lesson and walk off a court and have that early moment where I was like, I want to be a tennis coach. I know not everyone has that early epiphany, but I share that to say that coaching for me is in my blood. It is my vocation. It is my purpose, my passion, my energy. People say now, what do you do? I'm a coach. It's such a simple answer. I've struggled to answer that question over the years. And those early days, if I take you back, I loved the moment of even friction where somebody's learning the sport of tennis and they're struggling. And my first business, Tennis Innovations, was all about how can we find another way to teach? How can we find another way to coach? And not just rely on the way that I was coached. I've always been super fascinated and curious about how people learn. And obviously that is even fast forward how we met. Like during that period, sort of between 2005 to 2012, was such a huge growth time for me with regards to emotional intelligence and neuro-linguistic programming and why do I bring out the best in these four players but not these four players. And I think that's a significant part of my backstory, in that I felt like I was a good coach and I knew there was something missing, and I thought it was going to be a complete career change. But it was actually, the more I learnt about people and people skills, it catapulted me back into coaching coaches how to coach. And to be honest, Tracey, that's what I do today. I go into the workplace and I teach adults how to coach their team members in the workplace. So the through line in all of that backstory from tennis, and just an ordinary girl, I got to play Division 1 college tennis. I got to represent Australia 20 times as a national coach, and hundreds of times in other state teams events and so forth. And throughout that whole journey, that coaching is a through line, and stretching myself one layer at a time, just one layer at a time. I feel like that's the only way I know how to be successful. It's like if something's bothering me or something is igniting my curiosity, I'm like, okay, how do I grow? How do I get curious? I jump on a plane and I learnt from some of the best coaches in the world. No one gave me a job, Tracey. I just rocked up at these academies in Florida and I learned the look. I stood on the court with the best of the best, and whether they were or not, I just said, right, what's one thing I can take and add to my own toolkit? And I've never stopped doing that. I reached out to about literally 3 people today who are where I want to be and asked them to interview them on my podcast, right? Because this podcast is a tool for me to learn and keep growing one layer at a time. And I feel like I've just answered that all over the place.
No. Well, there's so much great stuff in there, isn't there? That willingness to say, this is where I am, and where's my stretch is not a deficit position, is it? And that's such an important mindset to take, and one that we know in organisations needs a lot of work in. My area of growth is growth. It's not about it's a deficit I need to step into. And I think that's what I hear in you so strongly, is that ability to go, here's my strength, but what's my stretch? And not be afraid of that, but be energized by it. The energy in your voice when you're talking about it's extraordinary.
And right back at you, I just want to pause for a minute. For those of you who don't know how extraordinary you are, I mean, we met at the neuro-linguistic programming Marvin Oka course, and we partnered on so many exercises where I've experienced from you firsthand just what it takes when you can shift an emotion within the body. And the reason I was thinking about that is because you've just come back from a European tour where you did exactly what I'm talking about. You've gone to some of the best learning practices around the world to see what are other people doing. And I just can't highlight how important that is, no matter where you are in your career.
Absolutely.
So just wanted to share
Yeah.
that with our listeners, how amazing you are. And I'm so
Oh,
grateful.
thanks, Emma. This is about you, not about anything else. This is about you, but thank you. If the other thing that is very linked that I heard in what you were talking about is this ability to notice patterns. And I see this in my son who's doing working in the mines, doing fly in, fly out. And one of the things I love about hearing him talk about it is even though he has got the grungiest job, he's got the hardest job in the mines as a driller's assistant, sort of like the bottom of the bottom, what he is looking at is how do I become the best offsider there is? What do I need to look at? What's the feedback I'm getting and what patterns do I see? And, you're a great pattern observer, but also a great pattern interrupter. So tell us a little bit more about pattern interrupts and how you've used them in your life, in your work, to get shift.
Oh, I love this question. And I'm just going to go with, as many of my listeners know, I have had a significant milestone birthday. Okay, yeah, I turned 50 this year. And when I was hiking up that west coast of Portugal, there was two things that came up for me that are total pattern breaks, and I've already been implementing them, and they are, I think, revolutionizing the modern way that we coach. So the first one is this whole concept of being a couture in the workplace, which is a totally made up word that I adore and I have created, where it's literally COATOR. Coach first, mentor second.
Yeah.
And it sounds simple. So it relates beautifully to the theory of self-determination theory. And the whole concept there, where when after my hike, I was in Lisbon with one of my best Scottish pals who's a sports psychologist, shout out to Julie Gordon. And so she was talking about this theory around competence, autonomy, and relatedness for motivation and the spectrum that we're all on, from autonomy to the controlled motivation. And back to my concept of a pattern break of co-touring, one of the things I think is so important in the workplace today is to actually reverse engineer CAR, right? RAC, in that if you relate and build trust first and foremost, then you've got that relationship. To then coach first, which is the autonomy piece, which is about listening, about coaching, about choices, about hearing what their baseline level knowledge is. And then the tour piece, which is mentoring second, relates to the competency piece. Here's two other options that you may consider in the workplace. I'm talking about in the workplace specifically.
Yeah.
To be able to pattern break for them to then choose what they want to do and build that autonomy and that long-lasting impact as it relates to motivation. Because with no matter cross industries, over the last, especially the last 2 years, people are still saying to me, how do I motivate my people? How can I get them more engaged? And that's the mistake that we're making, where we can't make someone engaged, right? So one of the most important things is the simple concept of co-touring, and how can we reverse engineer the self-determination theory? And that's backed by science, right? And it feeds beautifully into what I know to be true, not only in the workplace, but also leaning in, Tracey. I'm leaning back into my tennis, my high performance coaching background, which is there is that motivation piece, right? But it starts with relating to the person. What's that common connection? Then the autonomy, and then the competency piece. So they're two pattern break questions that are just completely flooding my mind right now. And I have never voiced them out loud, except in Detroit last week, and it's at some Vistage groups. And I'm having so much fun with these concepts because I can see people just go, yeah, aha, rather than just mentor or just coach.
Yes.
So
is there a sliding scale? So I love it. And, one of the things we know great leaders do is this responsiveness to the context. And if you have someone who comes to you, but actually their autonomy, their drive for autonomy is superseded by their drive for security, their drive for being okay that I'm making the right decision, because usually you tell me as leader what the right decision is. And now all of a sudden you're asking me these questions. Now we know that that's the end game, is that I'm going to step in, I'm going to come with this thinking, I'm going to be, using my initiative, I'm going to be exploring things with you because you've created the environment that we can explore together. But that, that when is it that actually that mentor needs to come in, and when does it need to, that we talk about in education zones of regulation, what are the zones where it's time for you to step out, and actually your mentoring slice is just like a little icing on the top, or maybe it's not there at all. How do people build that skill, that insight? I know it's, obviously really linked to emotional intelligence, but what are your thoughts around being able to nuance this for the context and the person, of course, that's in front of you?
Of course. Well, you answered it right there. It is all about the person that is in front of you. And I think it comes with practice, like anything. As you know, my book, What Makes a Great Coach, isn't based on the top 10 chapters. It's based on the top 10 practices. Yeah. And I think it does, if you want to enhance this skill, it is the active, deep level listening that is the core foundation of everything that I do and believe in. Because if you listen, you can hear. And as NELPers, the map is not the territory. So we can look for those subtle cues within the body language to know, hey, is this the time to jump in the space, or is this time to let the space just be?
Yeah.
And that to me is what is a master coach. That's master coaching. And I aspire to continue to get better as a coach myself. Even I've been doing that for this many years. That's the coolest thing about coaching, because people are just so different and so fascinating. And I think it's based on a number of things, and it is a continuum. So I'm not saying it's one size fits all. It's just having a little bit of a framework, which is one thing that people are really enjoying about the workshops that I'm delivering, all over the US and Australia, is the practicality of some tools that they can have a framework to have conversations, and then it's up to them how they lean into when to ask what. So
yeah, great. Well, let's dig in a little bit more around that, and how you might, what you might look out for when you're working with someone, that NLP sort of approach of being able to see when the state changes. And can you explain to us a little bit about how you do that and what you do in that sort of environment that we're talking about?
One of the first things that people don't even think of, right? This is a really easy practical tip, is not having a barrier between you and the person that you're coaching. So it could be just your desk. If somebody comes in and it is a coaching conversation, a mentoring conversation, or even they've come in, just slide your chair over so that you can pick up on the body cues a little more. Matching and mirroring is as we know, that rapport is 101 that we were trained in. So that resourcefulness of the state that you're in is super important before they even come in the room. So that's pre-step. Then making sure we remove any physical barriers. That's an easy one right there. And then with the matching and mirroring, so much that I notice happens subconsciously. And as a coach, it's amazing how many times when you are tuned into that body language and just easing into the being open, so with your own body language, that allows the other person to feel more comfortable naturally. Now, these are subtle things that have nothing to do with verbalization. It's all just body language so far, and being able to hear the tone and monitor your own tone. I think that's one thing that I have definitely improved in over the years, is when do I need to just soften. Obviously, I do have a high frequency. Great energy is a lot of people say. Also, my energy can be too much for people over the years. So I have had to understand and really feed off the room to know what is that tone in that moment that is needed. And
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
something, again, all these little subtleties are experience, and you can learn these things. Obviously, we did eye patterning,
Mm,
reading the cues.
mm,
I still think
mm,
that is 100% like it's amazing when people are just where they're going to access the information.
mm,
And if you're in tune with
mm.
that and you can just let it flow, you can pick up on things that you never thought were possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I think it just gives an insight. And I know some of the people listening would be using these techniques all the time in their work, but for others, these sort of things can be totally outside our periphery almost, can't they? Because we often can focus so much on the content and how am I bringing in the curious question, and yet this stuff just floats around the outside.
I think also just on that, it, it's still so difficult to jump out of problem solving mode when people
Yeah.
are chatting, and not to go ahead and think about how you're going to respond instead of allowing your response to happen when it's ready and when it feels the timing is right, versus always being such a problem solver, a fixer, somebody who is a go-to. Like that's, I was like, what do you mean I can't give any advice? That's what my friends all come to me for
Come
advice,
to the
right? I'm
fore.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think these days it's more, I ask a lot more for permission. Hey, do you mind if I reflect something back? Here's something
Yeah.
I heard. This was a value-based something happening here. You do it when we go out for dinner. You say, where did you feel that in your body? So things like that, I think, is
Yeah.
so fascinating, and it's one thing that AI can't pick up on as well. Let's be honest.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when we go back to what you were just saying there about how do I not go into problem solving, it's about shifting our outcome too, isn't it? So what's the outcome of stepping into this approach as a leader is not that you're fixing problems for people, you're building capacity in people. And so our outcome when we have that conversation has to be thinking about that, doesn't it? That how am I creating the space where this person can build that skill? And I can also build the skill of not having to fix everything as well.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
the more I lean into my sports coaching background, the more I also lean into feedback in real time is
Mm,
another thing that's coming up. Let's not wait for the 360. Let's
yeah.
make sure that feedback is happening. It's coming from a place of love or agape love in
Yep.
the workplace.
Yep.
And I think the approach, the back to co-touring for a minute, is that we really care about the person, and so the feedback is actually taken on board in a way that inspires people to want to improve
Uh,
and impact the company. So I'm really excited about the future of leadership and
mm,
where it's
mm,
heading, and the role that I can play, because back in the day, I mean, even though coaching's been around since the 80s, it's crazy how now my leader as coach workshop is so popular and
yeah.
front of
Yeah.
mind, because coaching being accessible to all people, and now these managers and leaders are wanting to grow and learn how to coach their people rather than just manage their people. Such a
Yeah.
distinction there.
Absolutely. For me, it dovetails really into the work that I love doing with teams is the learning culture work. And to have a really strong learning culture in a team, there's so much that you want to build in that. But the leader as coach is pivotal to that, to encouraging that curiosity, encouraging that bubbling of where could we go with this? This ability to look to the future and go, where would we be taking some steps to move us there? You've the leader being able to bubble that environment around each individual person allows for the collective to do it. Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. And it's funny when I ask about culture, people, oh yeah, we've got a really great culture. And when I talk about coaching culture, which equals your artifacts, your vision, mission, and values, plus the way we do things around here, your behavior, plus coaching skills and tools, and that is the piece that many organizations are not yet have readily accessible to their managers and leaders. And that's what is really exciting, because you can have a great culture, and once you add coaching skills, you watch that culture just
Absolutely.
go to the next level.
So it leads, I call those cultures of nice. Like, we're nice, we love each other, but don't go near my practice. Don't be talking to me about what I actually do, but we love each other. It moves us from a culture of nice right up to a culture of growth, doesn't it? And, that is so much your sweet spot. What, in terms of that sweet spot of where you sit, what are some things that doing this podcast have really stood out for you, that have really not cemented because you're not a cemented person, but have really become foundational in the way that you do your work? Have there been any really big things that have stood out that you've put into your toolkit and you wouldn't put them down for anything that's come up over these 200 episodes?
There's so many things. So many things. The ones that I think have really impacted me are things like, with the episode with Charles Hardman, leadership called leadership is not leadership, and leadership has no ego. Those little one-liners that come to me from Hilary Blair. Friction is inevitable, conflict isn't. Right? Again, back to the feedback piece. The polyvagal theory, one of my interviews with Sean Brawley, I didn't really know that much about it. And since taking a deeper dive into that myself, I'm like, I can see how this shows up in the workplace all the time with regards to fight and flight, and obviously the limbic system and all those types of things. And then, even like someone like Jen B with the 1% principle, I live and breathe that with the people that I coach, with the way I support people. How can you make that 1%, that one step super easy? And I feel like it's like, I think one of my gifts and the podcast has given me, and vice versa, is the ability to take these concepts that these amazing coaches talk about. And somebody once said, it's like I'm the flute, and being able to then put them in and articulate it in a way for people to then take action, right? It's the only way I know how to be successful. And so many of the interviews, and one of my favorites with Tony Latimer about reverse engineering mindset. So, you can get a mindset change by reverse engineering and starting with behavioral change. And again, it comes back to a continuum, right? Depends on who's in front of you. But the minute he said that, I was like, well, that's brilliant, because I used to always go mindset change first, but it depends on the person. And if you can get a behavioral change, then the mindset will shift, or you shift the mindset and then the behavior. It's not one size fits all. It comes back to this whole continuum theory of who's always in front of you. And there's huge value in what he had to say there that I've added to my toolkit. And you're always on about head and heart from your episode, balancing head and heart, and trusting the gut with our decision making. So so just
for me, that mindset, if I can just can I give an insight from my learnings over the years?
Please.
My big things around creating a really strong learning culture is in a team or organization is mindset, environment, and dialogue. So are we talking about the right stuff? But the environment is, what's the energy and the structures that we have in place that allow that mindset to flourish. And I also, over doing this for 20 years, came to the really big realization that we've got to stop saying to people it's all about your mindset, because if you are not creating the conditions for people to thrive and flourish, that mindset can't can't move on. And so you see it when you see people move organisations, don't you, or teams, and they might be just surviving in one. They go somewhere else and all of a sudden they're blooming. So I am right with you. And I think that that's the extraordinary thing of you doing these podcasts, isn't it? And putting them out to the world is you give us the opportunity to just be taking such great thinking and mixing it into the way that we see the world and trying it out. Yeah.
And environment for me is everything. It's everything.
Yeah.
And, again, shout out to Judy Murray. And you have to remember some of these people that I interviewed really early on, I didn't know them, right?
Yeah.
This has been the best thing about the podcast. Now I know Judy really well. We went to Africa last year and helped, run tennis clinics and women in business, some pretty life-changing stuff. But she has always said, let the activity do the teaching for you. If you create that learning environment, the activity or the lesson will do the teaching for you. And nothing I do does not have a purpose, whether it's a balloon rally, a beanbag rally, a water balloon, using empathy to understand different maps of the world. That's environment. And I think sometimes it can be misunderstood. Oh, they're just playing fun games. But I think one thing, Tracey, I just want to say is that nothing I do doesn't have a purpose. Even the people that I do now get on the show, I'm very fortunate, and I'm so grateful to we have a global audience, right? And hundreds of thousands of downloads, right? And now, as you heard at the start of the show, we have a sponsor. Woohoo! Yes, yay. Yes. Which is huge, right? To be able to continue to bring on amazing guests, not only people that are well known, but also the people who are in the trenches that are doing such great work that I love to showcase their voices. And I highlight Judy there just to say, she's one of those people I really didn't know that well. And the podcast started as these little bite-sized interviews. I used to take the dictaphone in my handbag around to conferences and just ask people the same 3 questions. It took only a couple of minutes. That's sort of how it started and how it evolved. And the one thing I do also want to share is who I was when I started that podcast with Simon Blair. So huge shout out to Simon, because I didn't know anything about recording and microphones and sound quality and, as well as what he brought to the table as a business coach. My own career from that moment, from that first episode to what I'm doing today is completely different, yet the same, right? I'm a coach, right? So I'm still coaching, but who I was then and who I am today in terms of my career is completely different.
Yeah. Truly inspiring, I think, hearing you say that. And when you went to Portugal, you did do a bit of reflection as you were doing your long walk. And you've sent through a few of these to me. And the sort of the question was around, well, what do you know for sure? So you've done some thinking of what you know for sure. I would love it if you could just spend a little bit of time on this one. There's 2 that sort of go together for me around this, and it's around life and purpose. One is don't just make a living, make a life that matters. And the next one is if you were called to do it, it's bigger than you. And, I know both of them are enormous, but can you just give us a little bit more about those 2 beautiful statements?
Yeah, I think, first of all, shout out to Louisa Piccini, who offered me that reflective question. She said, what do you know to be true for sure? And it did flood out of me. It was a page and a half just onto the diary. And those 2 things are so important to me as the penny finally dropped around when you truly are in service to what you are doing, it is greater than yourself. So that it's like a calling, it's like a purpose, it's like all the travel that I've done this year, maybe 45 flights, is so worthwhile because I know that it's my calling and I know that I'm helping people to grow because they'll take action. They say what they're going to do and these people do it. The power in that, whether they hire me or not, is that it's fills my cup. It fills my joy. It fills my love for people to see the value in coaching. It's bigger than me, and when it's bigger than me, it fits beautifully into my life's purpose of why I do what I do, which is harness energy and inspire people to see beyond what they thought was possible and take action in the direction of their goals and dreams, unleashing human potential. That's been now my tagline or my purpose statement that I don't really share with anyone else. That's just why I do what I do, right?
Yeah.
And see how that just came out of me, that just flooded out of me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a great, I call it the pixelation of purpose, that, your purpose, you can see in every little 3D little pixel of you, and your choices in your life and the conversations you have, the people that you have around you. And, I think you can find it in your little fingernail, that purpose that you gave. And thank you so much for sharing it with us. What would you say to people who are struggling to find that calling, struggling or feel that they're sitting in a space where they're perhaps not stepping into that, but they would love to? What's your advice?
Yeah. So got a great coaching framework around that.
Of course you do.
Yeah. Because frameworks help. They really help.
Yeah.
They've helped me my whole life. So, so there's a great coaching framework around that. And the number one thing I would say is, if you can, remove yourself from your environment when you're doing the deep level thinking on these 4 questions. So just make sure that you can. One of my favorite, personally, I love to either go up to the tallest building of a place or a mountain at the highest point, just to get that bird's eye perspective, and then ask yourself, these questions around purpose. It's questions like, what do I hold to be most important professionally? If I could gift those that I love anything beyond physical gifts, what would I want to give them? When I'm living my passion, who am I being? What am I doing? And you know what? I'm gonna save the 4th one up my sleeve for anyone who's curious. They could they could reach out and I could give the 4th question. So that's what the podcast is all about, right? We give, we
Absolutely.
give. And also, if you're super curious, send me a direct message. And I'll give you the 4th question. But that's one way just to, help you unpack it. And then, I think AI is a great tool to then throw your answers and throw your ideas in there. And, of course, I do have a Coach M ChatGPT for everyone I work with as well, that I've had a lot of fun designing. So it's been super
great. Yeah, so interesting to hear how you're implementing that and just embedding that in the way that you work, and that authenticity around it being a tool, not a replacement. And so I think that's really, really powerful. Hey, I've got a bit of a rapid rally that I'd love to do with you. Is that okay, Coach M?
Yes, season 8. It's going to be a staple.
Season 8. So I've got 3 words for you, and I'm going to give you each word, and I'd like you to finish the sentence. One of them you already gave us a great sentence, so it'll be interesting to see what comes out of your mouth this time. The first word, inspire.
As many people as you can.
Great. Improve.
Yourself frequently.
Impact.
Something bigger than yourself.
Oh. 3 like mic drops right there. and so I think that we've traveled some really great spaces today. This episode was so all about you, and I think that's so important for your listeners. They get you in snippets as you bring brilliance of others, and we can hear your brilliance on the podcast, but you have got so much that you bring to the world, your energy, the curiosity, the passion, but that stuff you were saying before around frameworks, the structure in the head. For me, it's the head and the heart you bring beautifully, the ferocious warmth. The structures are so important, but in the middle is this incredible connection to people as human beings, and that you see us and you really value all the people that you come in contact with. So From all of us that listen to your podcast and who have you in our orbit, thank you so much, Emma Doyle, for what you bring to the world and what you bring to this podcast in every single episode.
Well, Tracey, it's been an absolute honour just talking about coaching and where I'm at and my journey with you. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be interviewed. And season 8 is also, you're going to see some turbo tips from Coach M. So it's just some short bite little size pieces of, again, sharing content, sharing tools, sharing frameworks that work for me and my clients. So I'm excited to bring those. And of course, the rapid rally. And Tracey, you are just a gem of a human. And thank you for being in my life. And to all my listeners, so grateful. Please keep checking in, keep downloading, keep sharing the show, and just humbled, grateful. And of course, I love that you used my 3 words that I've been using for years, which of course is inspire, improve, and impact. So thank you, everyone, from the bottom of my heart and Tracey's head and heart. We appreciate you all. Thanks for listening.
The Coaching Podcast is sponsored by Transition Coach for Athletes, a global coaching, mentoring, and US college sporting scholarship placement service. The service helps athletes navigate the often challenging world of choosing your best college fit while maximizing sports performance. Visit www.transitioncoachforathletes.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating review on your podcast listening device. And don't forget to tell a fellow coach about the show.